This morning, the FBI is looking into the death of a black man after he was stopped by police in Minneapolis. The attempted arrest was caught on camera, and we need to warn you here that it's very difficult to watch. The video of last night's confrontation shows a white police officer with his knee pinning down the neck of the suspect. And you can clearly hear the man saying, "I can't breathe," several times before an ambulance arrives. Jeff Pegues is following this story for us. Jeff, what are police doing about this?
Gail, good morning. Both of the officers involved in this incident are on paid administrative leave this morning pending the results of the investigation. Police were responding to a report of a forgery. They say the suspect appeared to be under the influence and resisted arrest before suffering what they call medical distress. We want to warn you what happened after that is difficult to watch.
Please, I can't breathe.
This 10-minute video posted to Facebook overnight shows Minneapolis police officers holding down a man. One officer uses his knee to pin the man's neck down.
I can't breathe.
Several times during the arrest, the man tells officers that he's struggling to breathe and begs for some relief.
Please. I can't breathe, officer.
Some people who gathered at the scene try to help.
That's bullshit, bro. That's bullshit, bro. You stopping his breathing right there, bro.
But as officers work to keep onlookers back, the man on the ground appears to move less and less. 5 minutes into the video, the man seems to be motionless, and the police officer's knee is still on his neck.
He's not moving.
7 minutes into the video, an ambulance arrives. When an EMT does the first pulse check, officers still have the man pinned. And when he's loaded onto the ambulance, his hands are still cuffed.
I just really killed that man.
Police explained what led up to the incident in an overnight news conference.
After he got out, he physically resisted officers. Officers were able to get the suspect into handcuffs, and officers noticed that the male was going into medical distress. Officers called for an ambulance. He was transported to Hennepin County Medical Center, where he died a short time later.
Police have not identified the man, and they say the officers' body cameras were on and activated during that incident. This is reminiscent of Eric Garner's very same words, "I can't breathe," uttered as he was dying on the streets of Staten Island, New York in 2014. That phrase became a rallying cry for millions nationwide in a plea to end police brutality. Gail.
Jeff, that video is so disturbing to watch. We know how the Eric Garner case turned out, and you said he was stopped for forgery? Is that what you said in the beginning?
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't an incident where he was armed. Police say that he was stopped for forgery. Obviously, there will be an investigation.
I hope so. That video raises a lot of very disturbing questions, and what we heard from the police officers so far does not seem to be very satisfying. Thank you very much, Jeff, if thank you is the right word there.
I'm sure you've heard the news about the government sending out rebate checks. Any single person that makes $99,000 or less is eligible for $1,200. And any married couple that makes $198,000 or less, well, they're eligible for $2,400. Well, this
That's a loud, light downer. Not a, there you go. Get, Okay. You ready now? Okay, I'm ready to start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Eid Mubarak. We just had a wonderful Eid this past Sunday, and in fact, we had let's call it a petty Eid prayer yesterday morning. But anyway, again, Allahu Akbar, wa lillahi ilham. Allahu Akbar, wa lillahi ilham. Allahu Akbar, wa lillahi ilham. I guess we just saw this video. I didn't technically see it. I just mentioned it to the brothers. I want to revive your memory a little bit on, I had one of those I can't breathe incidents myself. It was back in 2014. I was arrested in Oakland and taken to Santa Rita County Jail. And when I got to the jail, of course, you handcuffed behind all the time. Now, basically what happened was a whole group of officers took me out of the car and took me down, you know, to a cell. And I mean, it was a whole group, let's say 10, maybe 8, could have been 12, you know, but it was a whole group of officers. I'm handcuffed from behind. And, you know, in those jails, they had those concrete floors. So they had me handcuffed from behind, and so they was lifting up my back legs. So it was putting pressure on my chest. And also, I could feel either a foot or a hand in my back, and it was pushing me down. So I definitely couldn't breathe. So what happened was I was turning my head from one side to the other. And then I just lifted myself up. You know, if they, you know, they kind of holding you, and you could feel them doing all the martial arts moves on your hand and feet, you know. And so they was working the brother over, but they wasn't punching me, but they was working me over real good. So I just did a workout on them. I mentioned this before. All I did was I lift myself up and took a deep breath. Then I just went down. Now, I did that for a while because all I was doing was, now, I wasn't getting up off the ground, but I was getting enough traction from behind to pull myself up enough to get that weight off my chest. Okay, maybe one time out of the time I did it or two, I might have got my chest all the way off the ground. But generally, I was getting enough. When I felt I was up high enough, I just took a deep breath. And then I just went back down, came back up, and took another deep breath. And I was doing it like an exercise. So I kept consciousness, I kept everything. I saw this brother that had been killed about that time in New York, the I Can't Breathe brother that was selling cigarettes or something, 1 or 2 cigarettes. He was kind of heavy set and probably not conscious of what to do when you're immobilized by the police. You know, whether you can roll over and breathe, whether you go back down and pull up, you know what I mean? But it's some kind of way. Unless, in that case, they had, in his case, you could see the police's body on the guy. that'd be more difficult, especially if you're not in condition and you're not thinking about stuff like that, you know. So we just wanted to run that. But anyway, is that right? Right. Okay. But well, one thing we can see is that after 170 years of the, you know, so-called freedom and being out of slavery, is something like that. That we're still going through the same things that Jim Crow haven't left. They just call him James Crow Esquire now, but he's still here. The 13th Amendment is still in full force. The Constitution, illegal searches and seizures have been out the window all the time, but especially for the last 40 years or more in the black community. Let's call it 50 years, because of those new guidelines. Illegal searches and seizures have a lower threshold in a high crime neighborhood. Just like stop and frisk, that came out under Nixon back in '69, where the police wasn't supposed to be able to stop and search you, but they could pat you down and feel your pockets. The stop and frisk of the late 90s and early 2000s and all of that, and up to the day, is all in the black community. They don't stop and frisk Europeans, you know. Anyway, today's subject is geopolitical logic. So I had asked that we listen to a certain subject by Kishore Mahbubani. He's an Indian guy who left Pakistan during the transition period. He must have been a little kid. He moved to Singapore, and in Singapore he became not a politician. He became an ambassador to Singapore, to the UN. So let's say he became a diplomat. Even his ideas of diplomacy is what diplomacy should be. And he said diplomacy, like they don't talk to Iran, they don't talk to this, they don't talk to, he said diplomacy is developed to talk to your enemy. That's why everybody has diplomatic immunity. And he was explaining in the old days, if a messenger went to an enemy king and said the king didn't like the message, he would cut his head off. So they came up with this diplomatic community so that the emissary can go and talk to the enemy and still come on out. And so we see that the UN and all of those institutions, especially the UN, especially when you have an embassy in each country, you have technically diplomatic immunity. So diplomatic immunity is technically is good. A lot of people, they rush different embassies, and if they want to go to out of the country, in South America, I think they rush the Chilean embassy, stuff like that, you know. And if somebody wants to go to Europe, they'll run inside a European embassy, and you have refuge. Like Julian Assange. One thing about it, if the subject is geopolitics, you can see that these geopolitics is very strange today. In fact, we'll get into some of it. I wasn't going to talk about it fully, but I want to talk a little bit about U.S. diplomacy and how it's carrying on today. So, one of the things I'd like to mention is that the U.S. is losing all of its wars. The U.S. in recent years have lost almost every war. Maybe the invasion of Panama, you could say it didn't lose it. But it lost it all right. In the eyes of the people, big old USA going down and doing that to Panama, a little strip of land, right? And then taking the guy, their dope dealer. Imagine all the South Americans that know how the game go and that know that they used to go to Panama and take their money. See, they got Bank of America in Panama. They got all those big banking interests. See, since Panama is neutral, a lot of the money that people keep is in banks in Panama. Yeah, they keep money. And so, and a lot of the drugs, everybody know that Manuel Noriega was a big dope dealer for the U.S. Everybody knew it. It'd go back to the time that when the Shaw got kicked out of, Manuel Noriega was he was assistant to Umar Torrijos in the old days. When the Shah got kicked out of Iran and they came over here, then he went to Panama. And Noriega was his personal guard, had his own. Manuel Noriega took care of the Shah. Then he finally went to Egypt. So Manuel Noriega was a friend of the Americans, a good friend. They just bottled him up, took him to France somewhere and put him in jail for the rest of it. It's unbelievable what they do. And so a lot of people see that. The people that's doing it don't think that it's having an effect on how people see them. But they losing bad. That's a few of the things I want to mention today. The U.S. is losing all the wars. And since the discussion, some of it will relate to China. For instance, we talked about the 3 centers of gravity the other day. In Asia, the center of gravity right now is China. Center of gravity in the Middle East is Iran. And the center of gravity here in the U.S. is the As-Sabiqun movement. I know it sounds like we're blowing a whistle and all that, but we have to. The reason I want everybody to just have a quick view of what's being said. Now we know that this is the historical analysis that many people around the world have. If we listen to RT, if we listen to even Al Jazeera, whoever we listen to, even the U.S. press know that the U.S. is going down. They know that the U.S. has lost its strategic balance in the world. Everybody know that the U.S. is pulling out of the World Trade Organization. Everybody know that the U.S. pulled out of WHO. China didn't pull out. Every time the U.S. pulls out of something, China stays there. Everything the U.S., even the Pacific Rim, whatever that was over there, the U.S. pulled out of them. Obama didn't pull out of them. The United States, under this man here, pulled out of them. That's why this man, Donald Trump, is great for the accelerated decline of America. And in this decline, everything that happens will influence the decline of America. Everything that happens right now. Of course, the Quran says you can't speed it up or slow it down, but evidently Allah wrote into it that it's going to accelerate. You know, it can't accelerate with Allah writing it in there. So it's written in. This global epidemic, pandemic that's going on right now. They have a saying that generals always fight the last war, which they do. Some of our brothers that's big in the Islamic movement that came out of the civil rights movement, they were fighting the civil rights movement in Islam. And you could see what happened to them, that they acted off of that era in modern times. Wasn't the right thing to do. Okay, I'm not going to dwell on that. But here's the thing. 2008 and 9, the great decline in the American economy, right? Housing fell, all the stock market fell, and all of that. Okay, now this time, you hear them say, the stock market has nothing to do with the economy. How is it that all this bad news? Now at first it did, the first couple of weeks. Remember that boy was bam, down 1,000 today. 2,000, 1,500, that boy was headed down. Then they slowed the decline and it started to come back. How? The U.S. buying up everything. So people could put junk bonds on the market, or junk bonds, or junk anything, and the U.S. will buy it. That's what's holding up the stock market. Because the U.S. fighting the last war, 2008 war, and you'll hear them mention it every now and then, the U.S. has learned from 2008. Keep the stock market up. That's not what it's doing. It's driving them more in debt. See what I mean? The dummies, you can't even imagine how many trillions they done spent already. They say 6 trillion. No, it's more than that. You could tell by the stock market. It don't go down. The baddest news the other day in a row. And it just kept going up, kept going up. Impossible. The stock market goes off panic, what people think is going to happen. So they done told the big white folks, don't you worry. We're going to take care of all of that. We're going to keep it up. That's a historical mistake. As the generals fighting the last war, they felt like the stock market really did crash during that time. And it went down to 6,600 or something like that. That's the time to buy it, when it wipes out all the money. It's a long story about the games they've been playing with the stock market. For years, they had 3 windfalls on the stock market. They get everybody to put their pension funds and everything in the stock market. That's real money. Then they crash the stock market. And they get all that real money. Pension funds and all that, that's real money. What they putting in is huff and fluff. So if the stock market crash, they sell off all of the pensions. If you're a fireman, a police department, they get all that. And then the government have to pay y'all's pensions funds. You see what I mean? They can't say, well, you ain't gonna have no pension. So who has to pay it? The government. It's another way to rake the government. So the biggest sucker right now is buying up everything is the government. Okay? The government gonna be in debt. The government's gonna fall. The big companies, they subject to be super rich. During this go round, good God Almighty. They making everybody poor. All the little businesses are going out of business. All you'll have left is all the big franchises, because it'll cost too much money to go into business. You know, in the past, going into business was a business of America. Like, for instance, 5 of us did get together and we saved $50,000 and we opened a restaurant. Now, we got to be lucky to make it fly, because even in those days, 95% of the business failed. But imagine if we take our money and we invest it in that building and in food and everything, we helping the economy, because they got to come in and remodel and do this, that, and another. Imagine how many times a building been remodeled to bring in a new business. The business failed, no problem. They invested their money in that. That's a business. The business of America is business sometime, that you just put in new. Suppose right now you can't afford it. And the big companies, they just handing them money. The best time to buy anything is after a big panic and a big business failure. Who's going to have the money? The big boys. They're going to get everything super cheap. And they're going to concentrate the wealth. They're not going to. Technically, they've been concentrated. We're already modern slaves, whether, anyway, Then America, one thing that this guy said I liked. We know the disappearing middle class, right? I remember when it started disappearing in 1980, everybody in Oakland that worked in GM and Sunnyvale out there at those GM plants and all of that, they made big money. Boy, this is 1980, they made $20 an hour then. Negroes, our friends, they was living up in the hills. They lived like rich people. They were making clunker cars, couldn't last. The unions had got everybody too much money. And if you look at 1979, 1980, stagflation and all that they talked about, a hedge against inflation, right? That's when the U.S. economy started going in the tank. Reagan blew all the airline controllers and all of that. That's when a union like that, he just said, "Fuck y'all," Okay. Everybody, they bailed out Chrysler. So what are you doing bailing out? This is capitalism. If they can't make it, if they can't stand the heat, they got to get out of the business kitchen. Not then. We bailing y'all out. And they bailed them out. At the same time, they looked around for where they going to make their big money. The blunder that they made, we mentioned it a while back, see if you remember. The biggest blunder they ever made was they started sending all their business to China. And China was stealing everything. All the old CD, what didn't make no difference what you made. In those days it was cassette. China would just steal everything. It didn't believe in no copyrights. If you printed a book, they was worse than Pakistan and India. They don't believe in copyrights. A lot of the Islamic movement books we have come from India and Pakistan. They ain't paid nobody nothing. a lot of al-hadith, a lot of the good books we have, the people that wrote those books died in poverty. The old ones that we had. They came from India, they came from Pakistan, you ain't got no royalties at all. They would read, I mean, they would copy everything. But anyway, that was China. But the other thing was in real live economy. In 1980, China was just trying to get a little rustle in its hustle, like, you know. So they started sending everything from here. I'll tell you what it was. Do you remember the book, Deindustrialization of America? You may not remember, but it was a book. Right, and it said exactly what they was, yeah. And it was probably 1980 or 81 or something like that it came. Deindustrialization of America. I said, man, they're going to send all their stuff out of here because American workers are getting paid too much. They call it too much money. And I said in khutbahs 20 years ago and others that they won't bring no industry back to America till, I said at that time, till they was paying them $6 an hour. In other words, make Americans so poor they'll work for anything. Actually, they're there now. They'll work for peanuts just to work. So that has been accomplished. But they sent it all overseas. They sent it to China. Now, America was counting on the ideological victory of capitalism over communism. Usually when capitalism and communism had a clash, like the Russians and the Americans, the capitalism won. They say it won, under that phony freedom and all that. Okay. In China's case, they thought that once you get wealthy, a big middle class, that middle class will want more freedom and all kind of stuff. That didn't happen in China. China got their freedom. They got all the stuff, like the guy was saying, he said in the old days, in 1980, in China, you didn't have no choice of clothing. Remember them old Mao suits? You wore a Mao suit. Everybody, men, women, children, everybody had a Mao suit. Mao hat, that's it. Everybody, diplomats, you gonna wear that. Okay. They had got one guy called Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping was he had learned something from the Great Leap Forward. The Great Leap Forward was in 1958 and 59, when China was going to make a lot of steel and all that. They was making backyard iron out of old beds and everything. It didn't work. Millions of people starved. But he called it the Great Leap Forward. Deng Xiaoping was watching that. Deng Xiaoping his famous statement is, it doesn't make a difference whether the cat is black or white, long as it catch mice. It don't make no difference whether the system is capitalism or communism. This way, long as it works. Chairman Mao, if Chairman Mao was sitting at the head of the table, Deng Xiaoping, he couldn't hear good. He was sitting way at the other end of the table. So he couldn't hear what Chairman Mao was saying. He did it on purpose. Everybody knew it. So Deng Xiaoping, Chairman Mao used to say, you're looking for the capitalist voters? He said the capitalist voters are in the Communist Party. In other words, you're talking about the capitalists, they're right here. They're right here in the capitalist voters are in the Communist Party. Deng Xiaoping, he was right. When Chairman Mao died, they had an interim guy called Guo Guofeng or something. He took over. But then Deng Xiaoping took over. And Deng Xiaoping, he was slick as grease, boy. He said, look, with the Americans, we're going to run this game. He said, don't harass them, don't talk bad about them, and keep humility. Not keep your head down, but just a grin. That old Chinese laundryman grin you used to see on the old movies, this is what you keep. Don't antagonize boss man. And they ran that game, look at here. It don't make no difference what you say. They ran that game. I mean, par excellence. So much so till even just a few years ago, you would hear on, Chinese got a good media. I try to pull it up, but I can't pull it up. I pull it up, but it is not the English. They took it off TV. Chinese news always, they have good specialists on the Chinese news. And so they were saying, well, is it about time for us to speak up for ourselves? You know what I mean? One thing to realize about China, some of the people don't mention it, but China, 1839, 1840, the British forced opium on it, called it the Opium War. And when the communists came in, the first thing they did was kill all the opium people. They just, boy, it was. Now the Chinese, they grew opium in India, British colony, and they took it to China in the old days. And they addicted the whole society to opium. China was humiliated. They had signs, no Chinese and dogs allowed in the parks. No Chinese. They remember that. They also remember their glorious history. 4,000 years of the most continuous society in the world is China. There's nobody else been around 4,000 years, 1, 2, 3, and they never go anywhere. But China. That's the only one. Okay. So their thing is the revival of the Chinese civilization, the Chinese self-image. Because America is scared of China doing like they think China gonna do them like, but China don't have to do that. If you see China's move, all the stuff we always talked about, encirclement and suppression and this and that, China uses that automatically. The Caribbean Initiative, I said, boy, look at these Chinamen. This is years ago, Caribbean Initiative. Oh, we your friend. Share and share alike. We go 50-50, me and you, friends. Caribbean Initiative works. The initiative in South America, right? The Belt and Road Initiative, the Belt and Road, where? Everywhere. Can you imagine? They say they building a road in Africa, a Belt and Road. But just think, I was in Africa when they built the Tanzam Railway, the old type railroad. That was 45 years, 50. That was a while back. Good God Almighty. 1970, 71, 72. The Chinese built a railroad from Lusaka, Zambia to the harbor in Dar es Salaam. The Americans built a highway. All along the highway is mixed children. Half white kids, half African Bantus. Not one single baby from the Chinese. And the Chinese we used to see them. They would go shopping. They'd all get off the bus on the weekend. They just, no, they wasn't shopping. They would just look in the window. And there's just busloads of Chinese that worked on the railroad. And they were always very nice, but they worked harder on the railroad, the African railroad, than the Africans did. Just like right now, one of the things, no, the Chinese, they have to be cautious about what they do in Africa. Number one, the Chinese they're industrious. They just run and they just work. They've been doing it so long, that's what they do. Okay, if you get an African, I'm not down on the masses, but Africans is good for a 3-hour day, maybe 4. But after siesta, that's it for the African. And like the hardest they ever worked, Africans, was here and down there in the islands. But they ain't, hey man, the Africans in Africa, the Chinese own big giant farms now in some places over in Africa. And they share, they get a good deal. They're not getting burnt like colonialism. The point I was making, the West thinks that the Chinese are going to do the world like they did the world, recolonize the world. But the Chinese are doing very careful. They're being very careful on several things. In other words, this Chinese Communist Party has a high level of ethics. You can see, look at, they didn't raise the standard of living of I don't know how many hundreds of millions of people in the last 40 years. They up there. They got a giant middle class. And now they're going back to who? Get the poor. That's their policy. And they're actually doing that. Now we got to raise the standard of living of the farmers that's left and all of those people, the poor. And they putting big dynamite schools and everything in the farm areas all over China. They're doing it now. So the Chinese have a vision of a utopian communist vision, and they're actually working toward that. They say the biggest mistake the Chinese made was when 2 years ago they gave the speech, and the premier of China, he laid out the plans for the next, by 2049, which would be the 100th anniversary of the Communist Revolution, we want to have everybody to hear. By 2035, we want to have a modestly wealthy, they use that term, modestly wealthy, modest society, where the people are modestly, let's call it a middle class. They're not a wasteful society, but they want to have everybody up to a certain standard of living. They already got all the middle class, they got them already. Now they started back, this started a few years ago. We're going now and get the poor. But America don't go get the poor. In fact, America is making the poor. You see, America looked up and saw everything. Remember in school years ago, they used to brag about the great middle class. Thing that America has is a great middle class. That's true. After World War II, it could afford it. After World War II, everybody was blown up and couldn't move, and America was the only one, hey man, it was standing tall. So it put out a Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe, you know, if they wanted to keep all the people from running to America and South America, Latin America, and Middle America, they just have a Marshall Plan, send a lot of money down there to put people in the business. And they wouldn't come up here. They come up here because there ain't no money down there. The dictators they put in, and this is what all the Latin American specialists say, you put all the dictators down there, they vote for a guy that calls himself a socialist implementator, and you put him, kill him, get rid of him, right? And then the only people you bring in is dope dealers and crooks. And so it ain't no more money down there. They got to come in. Can you imagine? They that poor that they would risk what they risk to get up here? Hey man, that's got to be serious poverty. Okay, let me speed up. But okay, back to the point. The Chinese built the railroad right now. They just built it in Kenya, from Nairobi to Mombasa. Mombasa is a Muslim city right on the coast of, right on the Indian coast, Indian Ocean over there. Boy, it's beautiful over there. Don't let nobody lie to you. It is beautiful over there. The Negro, I want to change the subject. The Negro from here, talking all that black nationalist talk, got over there, and all them palm trees swaying in the breeze, and that green is green, that beautiful green Indian Ocean, and they was smoking that, they call it bangi, other people call it ganji. It was like super different than here at that time. The Negro was walking on a cloud, I'm in heaven. No, just think that the sand on the beach was this thick and white, like nobody never walked on it before. No, when you went out of town a little bit, there nobody been there hardly. And the Negro got over there, boy, look at here, he was in heaven. Anyway, we live in a world today that we're going to play a part in, big time. We already have some of our plans, some of the things that we've talked about. I'll put it this way. For everybody else, this is a big surprise, what's happening now. It ain't no surprise for us. It ain't no surprise at all. We all got the plans, we've been working on it, and we have a job that we want to do. It sounds really fantastic. The center of gravity is China over there. The center of gravity in the Middle East is Iran, which it is. The center of gravity here is us. Just this morning, I listened to a little talk, 2019. They was playing on Press TV. And it was the ICNA mass meeting they had at McCormick Place in Chicago last year. And the speaker was talking about, you should read the statistics from CARE, the billions of dollars that they're spending to cause trouble amongst the Muslim Islamophobia. And they know it. And that the best thing they can do, I also heard Ridwan Jaka from the joint out there. It's unbelievable, the sadness and the policies that they have. Like CARE's policy. CARE knows all of that, and CARE won't, we was at CARE 4 or 5 times. Won't even talk to us. You call the man down there in Texas, you'll be following it up till you go to China somewhere. You be following, all right. You know, he not only gonna get, he was forced to get back to me. All he did when he said, I want to read you what they say about you. He read me what the white folk, he's white of course, what they said about me. He said, is that true? I said, absolutely not. Ain't none of what you reading true. I says 2 or 3 facts and figures that is. I said, but the whole idea is incorrect. Why was he reading it to me, what they say? Because if I was what they say, then they would have a right to do to me what they doing. The way he feels. If they told CARE that that's an internal struggle that we're having in Oakland. The government gives the Negroes the right to do anything they want, and it's an internal struggle. That he could have this piece of paper right there, don't make no difference what it say, and go to the bank and get our bank account. Nothing legal, nothing. You can't do that. Of course, we get it all back. That's not the problem. The problem is that you know, on this, since I'm straying, I might as well keep on. You know, when we talk about acquiring farms within 100 miles of each masjid, and you know, agriculture, yeah, that stuff is good. And then also the Muslims in the media and their own music and everything. They don't know the society. The society always goes to the minority music. They always do. Blues. Country. What's country? White folks' blues. They don't listen to Chopin and all them people. Maybe Barbra Streisand them 50 years ago had 1 or 2, but they don't listen to that stuff. What the elite white people pretend like they listen to, they listen to the po crackers and po Negroes. And now the Negro is losing his historical base in music. So they drifting into world music, you know, world music, African and all of that, you know. Farkatori and all them guys, he passed away, but they still listen to music from Mali and all that. And they combining it. White folks, what they do is they'll blend you up, like Malcolm say, they'll put so much milk in your coffee that pretty soon, instead of the coffee waking you up, it'll put you to sleep. White folks do that with music. What's the name went over there to South Africa? Weinstein, Breinstein, one of them Steens, whatever it is. In the 80s, messing around with the South Africans. Anyway, he went over there, he played guitar and all that. And he was making it good for me when South Africa was popular. You know. And what they did was they blended their stuff together, and then they put so much milk in it that, you know, anyway, it lost its flavor. If our black kids mixed with the other Muslim peoples were to just make music and poetry about how they feel, they don't have to worry about it. Within 5 or 10 years, it would take over all of this other stuff. Because it would be saying something, and it would be, they don't have to do nothing. They don't have, what they don't know nothing about America. All you have to do is do that, and it'll take over. America always, or white people always go to that thing. They go there. There ain't nothing you can't stop them. Okay, so if we wanted to influence the world instead of begging to get into their society, just cooperate where you can, but make your own statements and make them clear, because that's the way the world is going. That's the way the world is going. The leaders just don't have the confidence, and they're definitely not going to listen to us. When we told them, this is not new. All this stuff, you could go back 20 years ago. How to think and believe and act or something after that. Pax Romania, Pax Britannica, Pax Americana. It was all spelled out then. This is not new to us. But what we have to do is try to arrange this in an order where we can now, the transition, the transformation will not be of one or two individuals. Our big job right here is convincing the Negro and the Muslims and the immigrant, everybody, that it's in their best interest to move in this direction, because this T-shirt, "Boss Man Bites the Dust," is a reality. Technically, he's already bitten the dust. Technically, he's already been challenged in China. Technically, he's ran all of his friends away. He done pulled out everything. That's already done. Yesterday and today, they had 2 of the ships made it to Venezuela. They done had 5 ships taking petrol, refined petrol, to Venezuela. And they're there. They're getting there. And they said, both of them say, when you get in the Venezuelan waters, you're under our protection. And the U.S. Navy is flying AWACS and all them all around. Ain't nobody paying no attention to them. And Iran done told them, if you do this, anything to us. Now, one thing about it, they did a little afterthought. When they talked about when they killed Soleimani, and they was talking about, if you do anything, you even raise your eyebrows, we're going to knock off your cultural places, we're going to burn y'all. And Iran just said, yeah, I see about that. So they hit Boss Man, and they hit him a whole lot harder than he said, right? Boss Man is still hurting from that. They shook him. And they ready now. The stuff we talk about, the geopolitical world, when we say Iran in the Middle East is a center of gravity, it's true. Number one, the pressure that they've been under have revived their feeling of rebellion, revolution, and resistance. And they know no matter what they do, that's what they're going to get, because that's what they've got. That have been their greatest blessing, because through that resistance, right, a resistance to the economy, they can stand anything. Couldn't nobody stand that type of thing. And to go along and get along as good as they have. They become independent, right? And then everything, the Fifth Fleet is in there at Bahrain. That's right across the thing. 80% of the people in Bahrain are Shias. The other 20% is Sunnis. They've been harassing them people for years, putting them all in jail and everything. Yeah, the 20%. It's not the 20%, it's probably the 2 or 3% top. The rest of the people don't. They'd rather just get along with everybody, the people. All that stuff that's loaded there in the Middle East, And Iran's weaponry can hit anybody, everywhere, all the time in that region. And they just cranking it out, stockpile, underground factories, popping out missiles all the time. They just cranking them out. And they got the guidance system now that they can hit anything close to this table. They can either hit the table direct, or they cut the farthest they're gonna get away is they can do that. They're number 4 in drones in the world. That means they big. It's been a few years, but 2012, that big drone that the Americans make, what did they do? They captured that boy in flight and made it land in their area, in their place. And then they did just like the Russians used to do with B-29s. They took it all apart, put numbers on everything, and rebuilt it. In other words, re-engineered everything, right? So now they had that, but that was 2012. Technology is on a big move now. So anyway, the world has changed. The world has already changed. And it is changing so fast that the U.S. is sad because there's no way of escape. Everything that they do, China has a Belt and Road Initiative. They're going all around the world and they give everybody a piece of it. That means the U.S. is surrounded, a belt that goes all the way around. So that linkage is almost finished, but the pieces that are, people are using it. So if you got your crops and what have you in Mombasa, you got to get them to Nairobi as soon as possible so they don't rot. You're going to take that 24-hour train or 12-hour train, or you're going to take that 4-hour bullet train to get your stuff. Now that's for goods, but the other stuff, it takes 2 hours to get there. Which one you going to take? That train that goes 200 and something miles an hour? Well, that old clunker, clunking around. Same thing they did 100 years ago, right? They don't have no. One of the guys was making fun of American rail system. They had this rail thing that come out, down, from Boston. Yeah. That is pitiful. Shoot, you get on a train in China, hey man, I'm telling you, super duper air conditioning, you push all these buttons, hey man, and you gone. China is catching up, and some of that, I went to Japan, might have been 20 years ago. And Japan, I tell you what, we was going to Sri Lanka and we was landing in Japan, but it was a cyclone, whatever they call it, things over there. So we had to stay one night in Japan at a hotel. I looked on the thing and said, you know the price of the hotel? $1,400 per night. That's in Tokyo. So then I went to use the toilet and I looked at all them buttons on the toilet. That was 20 years ago. You know where we do a extension? Push, wash. You're behind, get a washing. Dry that boy off, it dries it off. That was 20 years ago. They had all of that. You can't find hardly none of that here. That's what they do over there. So now, you catch the train here, you gotta pack a lunch, you gotta have an umbrella, you gotta have a parasol, you gotta have all that stuff. And you catch that boy in China, it'll take you all the way across China, just like, always it's flying on the ground. 230 or 40 miles an hour, 250 miles an hour on the ground. I wouldn't ride it. I tell you, I said, you got to give me the slow train. I'm just not built for this fast one. Not on the ground. I don't even want to fly, but I'm not going on the ground at no 200 and something miles an hour. I mean, Anyway, they got all of that. America's political system, they got a Communist Party there. They make all their decisions. They argue about it, and how much we're going to do. They argue about it. They discuss it. But when they come out, they got a platform. And everybody has been shifted around according to the position they took on this, that, and the other. You ain't gonna get kicked out, but your idea ain't flying today, buddy. This is what we're gonna do. And like they say, communism with Chinese characteristics. You can't put no title on what. Man, they use so much capitalism in communism and so much socialism in capitalism that they said, yeah, this is what we do. This is socialism with Chinese characteristics. Just like we're going to do with Islam, this is Negro Islam. We ain't going to change it around. But you can see ain't nobody running over to grab hold to it, so that it must be the right thing, right? If it was foolishness, everybody would go get it, because it ain't no cost. That's why people like flim flam. You the black man, you God, you do this, that. Hey, I like that. But dear brothers and sisters, I only have to offer you blood, sweat, and tears. I don't know if I want none of that, man. Blood, sweat, and tears. You done told them the truth. Hey, man, they ain't into that, right? That's why people don't want, the stuff we say is absolutely, and everybody, we're not by ourselves. We're not by ourselves. We're in the majority, in the word, in the solution. And the functional solution is coming around. The functional solution is coming around. And this virus is going to help that. Can't get a review. It's exactly right. He say, hey, man. And you could tell that he's slick. I mean, not slick like lying, but he don't tell you smell like a goat. He says, boy, there's odor going around. And I'm pro-anti-odor, and I like people no matter how they smell. He gonna spit. You can see he's pro-Western, but he's losing that. He's losing that fast. And he came to his ideas from a pro-Western, the West saved the world. So you wasn't on the train with us, homeboy. Everything. We at the same place, but we came from a different spot. You could tell that. We are now at the same spot, but we didn't come the same road, because what you were seeing, I didn't see it, and what I saw, you didn't see it. So we there's no argument about where we are now. We're in 2020. But how we got here? Hey, man, I wasn't on your ride. But anyway, when you get froze into something, you froze into it. The United States cannot make good decisions. They can't. Democrats, Republicans, this, that, another, and the white folks is paying them all, right? They can't make good decisions. They can't. It's impossible. If somebody come up with something good, it's going to be bitter. We got to redeal. China got a whole new infrastructure. They put their money in infrastructure then, and they still doing it. Infrastructure. You need infrastructure to do anything. America's infrastructure is falling apart. If doggone bridges is falling down, finished. Right? And there's some statistic about the highway system, the bridge system. You could tell, like when you go over I-70 in St. Louis, them bridges and all, you say, good God Almighty, I don't even know if I want to go with this boy. Them boys are serious, right? They very serious. A lot of them other cities, you go driving out there and you see, but the point is they can't make good decisions. The other thing is, it's off in the future. China and other countries, China, Germany, they invest in the future. They can't invest in the future. Why? Because the politician gonna be there. If I invest, the guy gonna get voted in, that's gonna be 15 years when we do that project. We started now. We done spent up all that money, and they gonna get the benefit. They're not good Americans, that's all. They won't do what's good for America. They do what's good for their dumb self. That's no problem. That's one of the declines that's written into civilization. You know, when they headed on the way up. America reminds me of all the big niggas I knew. See, that was, it's like not a civilization, but for instance, when we all went to California and up here, we all was poor Negroes, you know what I mean, and stuff like that, and we got a little hustle, we run into a little money, we start getting big and bigger and bigger, and then we start spending the money. We stopped doing the things that got us big, just like a champion that trained all that time, and then he got big, and he stopped doing it because of the press. You so-and-so. They was doing it to me. You Big Hank, you Godfather Oakland, man. You big, but it was true. In my 20s, that's the same thing. I did the same thing Godfather did on TV, on the movie. That's what I did. I was exactly that. Technically, I was a lot younger, but I was still in my early 20s and mid-20s, but I was doing the same thing. If anybody wanted anything, I had all access to everything. But now everybody else, they did a little different than I did. They would go up and get big, and then they would start headed down. Maybe they start using a lot of drugs. Maybe they start snorting a lot of cocaine. Maybe they got loose. They got loose. Then they became their worst enemy. I know it very well because for a few minutes, that's what was happening to me. The white man was giving me so much trouble that I was making mistakes. And I said, oh, that's what, so I just studied police psychology, and that's what they do. They mess with you so much, arrest you so much, you get loose. When you get loose, you get to, like all the movies, one more robbery and gonna get a little White House or a picket fence and settle down, right? Almost every movie. The old ones. They always get bumped on that last one. That's relatively true. The brothers had the civilization pattern that they went up, they was tough, they was smart, they was eye-opening, and then they got to live in that, and they got start heading down. They become their own worst enemy. And so the system put pressure on them, they made mistakes. Pretty soon, you'd find them all in prison. And then once they got him in prison, all of my friends, that's the same story. Once they was big, I used to tell some of them, hey man, how old are you now? They might have a little ponytail, starting to see a few streaks of gray hairs. I'm 47. Yeah, man, I said that. Now we was in the pen together. I'm a Muslim at that time. Maybe you can pull back a little. You know, once they get your number, it's all over. No, I got it big before. Nigga gotta have. Want to see big? Almost all of my friends. Nobody. My friends right now, some of since I'm the youngest, they're like 80 years old and stuff like that. And they just quit 20-something years ago, 15. One of my friends, he was big, San Francisco. He just got out of the penitentiary on the old folks thing. You know, we was up on the island together, and he became a Muslim. He was a good guy. I mean, he was really a good guy. But he was big, and he had to have big money. Once you know what I mean? And in the early 80s, I'd go see him. He'd at the county jail. And my sons, I'd take him with me. He said, Dad, he looks tired. I said, yeah, they give him 18 years. That's for the feds, and then he gonna do a lot of it. Then they get out and go back again. That means that boy use up most of your time. Why you see me grinning all the time? I'm the luckiest Negro. When it says thing about the word highs, luck, good fortune, I use them both. Luck and good fortune. I said, man, out of all the brothers, I'm the only one. First of all, it's Islam that did it. And if I wouldn't have, if it wasn't something clicking, I'd have wasted, instead of being out here running around the last 40, 50 years, I'd been in the pen. You know, I would have been in the pen. And this happened to huge groups. You see that pattern in governments. The United States is in that pattern. Once you get in that pattern, all the doors of escape, they're closed to you because you can't use them. If I would just do right, then maybe things would happen different. They can't do right. Remember I said we're going to adopt ourselves as the representative of targetism and everything and everything you do to us is going to jump back on you. We could say that. Well, it's happening, but whether that's the reason, it don't make no difference to us. As long as you think it is or who somebody think it is, it don't make no difference. We just talking. Who cares? You know, one thing about it, that boy is in trouble, and he know he's in trouble. The 2 or 3 thinkers they got, they know they in trouble. Now they got Don. There's no way out of it. There's no way out of it, and it has to be a big change. I'm going to move toward it because I have my straight again, but I'm going to get better. Here's the thing, though. The world that we live in is just ripe for change. So that's what I'm going to go to. So we have to write our own articles and our own analysis of our time, where we are, where the world is, the detailed outline of the part we or should play, and also in that new world, an ability to adjust to new roles. That's one of the problems the U.S. have. They can't adjust to the 21st century. This is back in the 20th century. We won World War II. We did this. We beat the Germans. We beat the Japanese. We ain't going nowhere. Okay. we have to be a little careful about writing somebody off. But as it looks, the U.S. is done for. What they did with Japan and some of the other modern countries in modern times, they won't be able to do with China because they picked a fight with the guy at the wrong time. They made fun of the Russians, right? We won the war, you lost, da 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 da. Then the dummies, even the brother said, you dummy, you won that and you turn around and turn on the Muslims. And he didn't say it like we say it. He mentioned the 90s and all that. That boy, they did that. They did World Trade Center #1. They did it to themselves to get what they wanted for us. By the time the second World Trade Center happened, it was already, they had all of it. They had the Patriot Act, they had all of that already. Okay, so they designed their own decline. Okay. Self-demolition, just, they did it. They did it. But remember, the Negro do it, he get big, he get rich, and he blow himself up. 92% of the time, he down himself. Okay. Now, let's see. Utopianism, early 21st century. What must be done now? We have utopian ideas over dystopian ideas. Dystopian is all the stuff you see on TV, all the wrecked cars in the future, and a gang of people wandering around from the place to that place, shooting each other with black clothes on, right? Okay, not a whole lot of food, no big gardens and stuff like that. That's dystopian. That's the picture they have of the future, because that's the picture. Can you imagine? That's how they see their own civilization. We got a lot to fight against. They see themselves. They know themselves. They say, we don't have a chance. In order to do, they do an analysis like, in order, Spielberg and all of them, in order to have a utopian ending in all this, or a middle part in all of this, we would have to do right. And they fill out the books, what in the hell have we done right? Right? What chance do we have of doing good or right? Right? None. That's the way they had it. So everything is not going to be utopian. It's going to be dystopian. So in order to stop them from committing suicide and bringing us down, the dystopians, we have to counter that with a whole nother view. That means a lot of what we're talking about, it really comes from education and training. We have to educate and train a group of people to believe in jihad and nafs, that you can win that war. That's the heaviest part of what we're doing, is convincing the Negro, convincing the Arab, convincing the immigrant that came here. Because they're doing a real dirty game on the poor immigrant. You know, there's a certain thing called ides of replacement. In South Africa, they have what they call born frees. And I was riding around with one of the brothers, actually he's a Muslim brother, Indian brother, and he was telling me in detail how South Africa is right now. He says, see that policewoman there? Yeah. He says, she's a born free. She was born in late 80s. They didn't experience apartheid, is what I'm saying. Let's say from 1990 on. They don't remember apartheid. Okay. All they remember is the ANC. All they remember is black people controlling their own destiny. They remember what happened after Mandela retired. They remember all of that. They remember the thief Ramaphosa. They remember all of that. The born frees are joining more with the white people, the Democratic Party over there. Easily. And the ANC is almost defunct. If you listen to, I don't know if you listened to, Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui told you what I was talking about, but I don't know if you ever heard the lecture. I might have it. And I told the people there what they have to do to beat. Yeah, I told them 5 million houses, you ain't gonna, don't forget about that. I told them all of that then. Told them if you want to make it, here's the way we're gonna do. We're gonna take Islam from the south to the north instead of from the north to the south. But here's what you're gonna have to do. The rich South Africans didn't do it. And I said, and if you don't do it, you're gonna wind up, the niggas gonna come get you. They did it all over. See, they didn't live in other parts of Africa. I was in East Africa. Idi Amin put out the Indian. They got rid of them. They got rid of all of them. And these guys are mostly Indians. A few Malays in Cape Town. They're not black Africans. Then they got the combination of Africans. They said, well, we'll get with the black Africans too. So they hired in their houses all the brothers from Malawi and all that. They're already Muslim. In South Africa, they're attacking them. The blacks from South Africa are attacking all them Africans from everywhere else. Easing in, getting out. I said, no, go after the Negro South African. The South African born here, raised here. Go after everybody, but go after him in particular. That's the one they get. They didn't do it. I come back there a couple of times and they got places full of the big beautiful places. They got a lot of Africans there making dua and giving little lectures and talks. So that ain't gonna hit it. So those guys, everybody hates them. They're nice guys. They're Muslims. They are brothers, but they get attacked. They get attacked when they used to read it. They attack them. You go get the niggas that's attacking the other niggas. Right? They don't do that because it's too hard. It's a bitter pill. It's a bitter pill. We told them all of that years ago. Man. That's 25, something like that, years ago. We told them that. That's what you're going to have to do. They wouldn't do it. They refused to do it. So the brother taking me around and showing me those are born frees. They have a different view of what's going on in South Africa than the brothers and sisters born during apartheid. The other thing is, you give a Negro a little power. There's no country in Africa that they didn't do that. In fact, there's no country, I hardly know it. We're all in the bush together. We're real life comrades. We take over. A certain amount of us become the chiefs. After that, you can look for them big cans full of wood and paper that they're burning with holes in them to stay warm. Jomo Kenyatta, the Mau Maus caused that struggle, successful struggle in Kenya. When we went to Africa in the early 70s, you know where you found the Mau Maus? Highway robbers. They started robbing and killing in the early 90s or the mid 90s in South Africa. I would go back there and the people would have their head all wrapped up. It was pitiful. I said, man, y'all got it, man. I said, you got to, they wouldn't do it, and they stuck with it, and they had an attitude about me. The rich South Africans, that's why they was happily trying to, they invited me the last talk I went over there to talk because I said here that I was coming to South Africa, so they invited me to come, but not to raise money, but to raise money for them, for a drug program that I have started, which was good, no problem. So I went and I helped them raise money. They was technically cutting me off. I went to a black school in Avondale, and it's a Muslim girls' school. A girls' school, all the sisters wear a perfect hijab, but none of them are Muslim. So I told my daughters, I said, look at these sisters here. Because you look at the little shoes and stuff. I said, y'all want to adopt that school? And we raised about $10,000, you know, for them. The government made sure I didn't get no extra money to take to them. And when I told the foreign brothers over there, I said, yeah, when I get back, I'm going to raise $10,000. We're going to come back at Christmas time, and we're going to give each one of them a couple $100 to spend on themselves. We're going to actually take them in big cruise. That this is your $200. You can buy what you want. That won't help the education. I said, self-image. This is all about self-image. Do you know how they saw it? We don't want nobody from the outside that's black coming helping our people. And that's where they was coming from. I was wondering, how is all these Indians opposed? Anybody I tell, man, when I get back, you're gonna do what? I said, yeah. Ain't nothing to me. I raised $10,000 for everybody. I need anybody. So I just raised 10 grand for them. Come back with American money, change it over to South African money with y'all. And I'll bring my daughters, and we'll take busload after busload to go shopping, 20 at a time. Stuff like that, right? That's what I told them. They wasn't going to do that. They didn't like that. Anyway, let me keep on. Ides of replacement is very strange here. They're doing a real dirty trick on the Negro here. If you look at the signs of people running for stuff, you'll see one right out here, Muhammad Ali running for something or other. You see, okay. You go to the movies. Anybody been to the movies lately? How many American Negroes? They had an African playing Martin Luther King. That's African Negro. We're not mad at nobody. But yeah, and everybody else, and I said, who? They said, no, the program you like, that one with the high school football player somewhere in L.A., he's African. Then I turned on the TV one day and he was talking in his own. Then not Luke Skywalker, but the Negro Skywalker that get the white girl, is African. Michelle Ali, all 12 years a slave. Why they don't go get the 500-year people? Remember them? That video, 500 years, the African nationalist type, our history over the last, it was a good video. Video 1, 2, 3, and 4. And over the last 500 years, it's like you would see their name, Umar so-and-so. Right, okay. Why they didn't go get them for the 12-year slave that know about it? They let the guy, okay, the Africans, maybe they don't know what's going on. They think we're just good at acting and all that. The Negroes, American Negroes are being replaced. Why? Because the American Negroes have a tie to the history that happened here. You get them in politics, in a few years, they have an immigrant attitude. A lot of things at play. You go to the shell up here where they own the Sudanese brothers, they got a nice show up there. But all outside is Negroes, causing them problems. Who are they going to dislike after? They ain't nothing they can do about it. They don't know. All they know is these bums are here all the time, standing in front of the door, asking for money, doing this and doing that. I wish they would leave. They ain't gonna leave. Some of them is there because they bums, and some is there because the white man got them there to make life miserable for the immigrant. And the immigrant, at least the first generation and a little bit of the second, them third generation Africans, they are African American because they was running down the street with us and hanging around, and they call them niggas too. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? They not like their mom and daddy come from back home, and this is the land of the free and home of the brave, and they believe that. They believe it, like for real. That this is the land of the free and the home of the brave, and it's gonna be like that because I'm not getting into nothing except staying focused on getting some money and staying out of trouble. That's the way they got they replaced Negroes on every level. The Islamic movement was black when they all got here. All the references was to black people. They haven't done that in 20 years. Because all the big organized groups with money are immigrant Muslims, and they're happy to be here. So they have replaced the Negro. They have replaced the Negro. In Islam, he's replaced. It don't make no difference what you say. He's replaced. He's replaced. Okay? And he's replaced in a way that every one of them that's still here goes along with the foreigners. Man, the imam from the uniformed imam, striped imam, Sergeant striped imam, I don't want to talk. Anyway, it's over there, across town. We was at the UN. Well, it was having dinner. The president of Iran was there. Zarif them was there, and he saw how Zarif come up to me and a big hug and stood there with me for all that time and just, okay. And then when they started talking about Syria, I swallowed as long as I could. I said, stop the music. I'm tired, and that's what I said. I done heard enough of this. And then I started running down, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And he was sitting there watching it. The president haven't said nothing, but Zarif and them, nobody said nothing. They all agree with everything I said. And they liked it too. And this Negro, this right here in this town, was sitting there watching. He was invited, and he never came up to me months after or any other time and said, man, you really handle that well. He ain't said nothing like that. He don't even talk about nothing like that. That means they didn't told them. Well, not they didn't told them. They just like the people who was in the army, Muslim military members. My foot. Muslim MPs, double MPs, Muslim police. That's who came to our masjid in Oakland. Half of them guys came from Germany. Muslim military members, and they joined our masjid. The whole crew of them. Abdul Malik's crew. Muslim military members. Anyway, this replacement has to be handled. This replacement is very slick. Now, you can tell it's comprehensive. You don't go and you don't hear nobody talking about this because they wouldn't handle it properly. Without hatred, we knew this was coming because Allah made it plain to us decades ago. Confrontation or cooperation. Remember that? Was that confrontation or cooperation? And already they confront, you're going to be confronted. You know, what do you mean? Confrontation, as you think you got a choice in the matter? Remember they was writing that big articles on that, studies. What should we do? Will it be confrontation? I said confrontation. Boy, y'all must be crazy. That was just about the time they sent a bunch of FBI over there to arrest all them big shots in Virginia. Right after that. So you're going to be confronted. Well, they wouldn't let my wife put on hijab, Iqbal, Yunus, and all of them. I said, so what? You think they let niggas, even if you got to go to the bathroom, boss man, can I go to the bathroom? Go to the bathroom. That's why when I was being arrested in Oakland, I was technically taking an enema. Come on out of there. I said, you must be stupid if you think I got all this juice up in my body and I'm going to come out and SHIT all over everything. I went and sat on the toilet till I finished. I cleaned myself out. I said, what are you stupid? Of course, they was watching me anyway. They thought that we would embarrass the guy. The one when I'm coming out with no clothes on, all that. That's why they ain't had nothing on, because no shoes, no nothing. So anyway, the ayats of replacement. They keep blacks back in the past. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. You seen the latest Malcolm X? Why do you think they have that from way? And the guy that's doing it too, who? You know, the guy that's doing it, good God Almighty. Okay, ain't nothing I can do. I'm just saying, repeating what I know. Keep me and you back in the past. We're back with Martin Luther King, back with Malcolm X. And we'll give the future to the immigrants. That's what they're doing. It ain't that, they done that. Let's say they done that. That's done. It can just go to a higher level. That's already done. Okay. Now, to handle all of that in America, remember, boss man is bad, but he's not all the way stupid. It's just that when it's his time to go, he's trying to build barriers to make sure he stay around. He ain't gonna stay around. That is not gonna help him. But we got to help manage this, so we're the only ones thinking about it. We're the only ones talking about it. Therefore, we're the only ones, must be, that have everybody's betterment. The immigrants, when they told the Sudanese to stop coming here, they stopped coming. You remember over on 8th Street, everybody, all the Sudanese was there. Everybody was there. You know, okay. Something happened. You know, somebody told them something. Why everybody got to move at the same time? So the movies, the big parts, directing, all of that. All the guys, I like Idris Elba and them, you know, I do. But they came from Africa, they came to Europe, and now they're over here. And immigrants have certain characteristics. You want to see a hard-working Negro? From America, go to Africa. We was all industrious over there. You had to be. They ain't got nothing but bare hands. You got to figure out something, right? We were sharp. Why? Because not only we back home, but we're immigrants over there. Immigrants. You got to think. You got to get hustling, right? You got to get sharp and fast, or starve to death. They didn't have no up-and-coming welfare programs. They didn't have nothing. You just had to get busy. And we did. We did. Most of the African Americans that's in Africa are doing relatively well. Okay. Complex. Who could navigate in this complex minefield? Immigrant Muslims of different origin. Immigrant Muslims of Muslim or African Muslim origin. Immigrants of all other mixed complex backgrounds. We got to bring it all together. We got to make this work, because everybody's thinking about their own little butthole. Nobody's thinking about this whole thing. You can see the more you think about it, you say, well, boss man, I think that's, I don't know if I got enough time to participate in that, because it's, just think, the people that participate in this, they gotta be, one thing they gotta be is big and smart. They can't gonna have no dummies participate in this, because this is gonna make you smart. And everybody that participate in it, they're gonna have self-control, discipline. Because I was wondering about certain things. I said, Allah just build you for certain things. And the one stage before doing this, that's why Allah said, go whoop that brother upside the head, because he has to have maximum patience, love, and concern. You knock everything out of his head except his brains, and be serious about it. That's what they did. Because we got to know, not we, like Allah, when he said, so Allah will know, it ain't so Allah will know. It's so the brother will know that everything is ready to go now. And all other things in the world line up right at the same time. It's all, as they say, it's already kind of hooked up. So anyway, a few more little statements and we'll wrap it up here. The Negro done blew it. Done blew this, and it wasn't his fault. He just didn't have time. He started a revolution, and didn't know what revolution was. Before we got books on revolution, it was already over. And guerrilla warfare, you didn't have no place to hide, because the Negro are going to tell on you, the other Negro, you know what I mean? They had, I'm telling you, they study us so clearly. In 1966, two of my best friends working for the government borrowed $200 from me and then paid me back the $200, and they paid me back in big bags of marijuana. And I just said, I didn't even smoke weed. I didn't know. So I said, well, I'll just sell it. I sold it, and I was addicted. Not addicted to the stuff. I was rich before I ever even smoked a joint. They did that because I was one of the only black nationalists in Oakland in the early years. I was the first popular so-called black Muslim in the area. When I came home in '65, everybody knew about Malcolm X, but here's a live, man, Hank, you don't smoke? No. You don't eat no pork? You think it don't sound like nothing now. But in 1965, Negroes, you don't eat no pork? I said, no, I don't eat no pork. In fact, I don't eat meat at all. because the white man in jail, he found out you don't eat no pork. He would take maybe a little handful of pork and throw it in everything, just so you'd know. I said, well, cracker, you keep it. I won't eat no meat and nothing with meat in it from now on. That's just a Negro, and it stuck. In fact, I was like that then. That's the same way I am now. You think you can't be a good Muslim without learning Arabic? Bump Arabic. It took me years to say, I'm going to learn Arabic. And it don't help you become no better Muslims, technically, because it ain't doing the people we know no good. The more Arabic they know, the less they practice it. Anyway, I'm going to move on here. U.S., some of our friends, like China, what was it? Sun Tzu said the best way to win a fight is not to have one. So the U.S. is losing all its wars while fighting. China is winning everything without fighting. Boy, that's all right. And they mad at China. China ain't did nothing to nobody. They just mad because when the Chinese got rich and powerful, they didn't say, we're going to become Democrats and Republicans like y'all. That made these boys so mad. That's why they mad right now. They burning up about it. They burning up. USA, short-term thinking. China, long-term, infrastructure, Belt and Road, investment, Africa, Caribbean. USA, bottom 50, wages going down since 1980. Middle class gone. Everybody is moving towards poverty, but that's good for rebellion, because when you start getting hungry, you start looking around and who got, why I got home, and they're not going to quit. They're going to keep giving them rich people more and more. It'll be evident. See, they got some smart immigrants, like the immigrants in Indonesia are Chinese. Guess who control most of the business in Indonesia? Chinese. Yes, they do. And same thing with Malaysia. They have affirmative action in Malaysia. You know why? To make sure that the Malays get plenty. The Malays run the government and all of that, but they don't run the money. So they're running all the Malays through higher education. That's why they're all over America and been here for 40 or 50 years. But you listen to the Indonesians, Chinese, they'll tell you, yeah, we have Chinese language, Chinese culture and all that. But we don't drive big cars. We don't throw it in their face like because they've had certain riots against against Chinese in Indonesia. Not riots in Malaysia, but Malaysia is basically similar. The Chinese control the industry, and now China is big, so Chinaman's going to work with Chinaman's. There's a lot of complex stuff going on in the world. People don't know how to ease through this minefield. That's our job. That's why we say the center of gravity for the Middle East is Iran, the center of gravity for Asia is China, and the center of gravity here is us. Because nobody is up on it, or nobody cares. You know what I mean? It's just that nobody cares. Anyway, what we're going to deal with, since I'm going overboard here, we're right in the process of, we're going to have little programs here. The first one we have might be tables with a little museum to show Masjid al-Islam, As-Sabiqun movement, and give a little talk. But we'll have a program here as soon as everybody get back busy. Not once a month, maybe from once a month to once every 6 weeks. And the programs will be a short talk, a short, 2-3 hours. So we have a short talk dinner and making people aware of our program, and we'll be going around to all the centers, passing out literature. So we'll re-familiarize ourselves with everybody, and everybody will be re-familiar with us. If they don't, we'll at least have a picture, a flyer, we'll have a picture on it. No, it'll make the Saudis mad, but that's all right. Some of our property with this, we got to get a plumber and what else we need? Electrician for next door. Well, all I have to do is turn the electricity on. But we need a plumber and electrician. So none of those, we had a plumber going to come by, which was, what's the name's cousin? Jamal. His cousin, but he haven't been around in a while. And then Hidra, so we haven't seen him. We'll wait a couple of days and get a few, if nothing happens by Thursday, let's put Thursday on the program. Thursday at 5, if it's all right. We'll talk about some of the specifics that we want to do, some of the concrete planning. We just wanted to talk about some of the things that we talked about today, so everybody would have a little yakin in what we're talking about. We're definitely not by ourselves. But we got to help people understand. When we mentioned Indonesia, they had Muhammad Al-Asi and what's the name? I'm going over there. Oh, we just want to stop the Salafi movement. They got Salafis in Indonesia. Good. You know why? Because the people lean more towards tasawwuf over there, more like, and they don't like them guys. It was good that a few of them got there and made a little noise, blew up a few buildings, and now they got to go. And we're hoping the same thing will happen with Boko Haram and all those people in Africa. Remember, this global war is funded by Saudi Arabia and America and the Israelis. They're all putting money, energy, and time into this. We got to deal with all of them. And we're going to deal with them from right here. Yeah, they ain't all that bad, So bump y'all, that's the way we look at it. And remember, if Allah got our back, that's it. That's just, the story is over. That's why we're talking, the story is over for them, not for us. Yeah, it's goodbye boss man. Goodbye Yahoo. The bad Yahoo, not the good Yahoo. They got a lot of good people that's on our side. Okay, are there any questions or comments about anything that I said before we Okay, so then we'll go on. Next program, we'll deal with specifics, specific outline, inshallah. So thank y'all very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.